Meeting to order. Oh, sorry, I about said Gail. So we have 6 o'clock and just got started. Okay, thank you. Is there a roll call?
Yes. Tyler? Jeff?
Yep.
John?
Here.
Deb?
Here.
And Andrew?
Yep.
Okay. And do we have an approval of the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Do we
No,
want to
any
have
further
a
discussion?
comment?
Any further
I was
discussion?
just saying, do you have any discussion on the agenda? Sorry, I was going to skip that one.
Uh-oh.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Looks like, is there anybody here for public forum? No. All right, we can start with the oral reports then. It looks like we have a portrait of the day.
Yeah, I just have a real quick
Oh,
update.
I'm sorry.
But first we were going to take a look at Gabby.
Sorry.
Just to give you an update of where we are on this journey. I think I've shared, that we've put a district leadership team in place that has representation from all buildings. I know. What are you looking at?
What?
Present.
Yeah.
Oh.
You present.
Present. Oh, present
up there.
Right. There you go.
There you go.
I
This is
thought you
so
were saying
cool.
something to me. I know, I was like,
Yeah.
what did I do?
Look at that.
I'm gonna leave.
And we've met approximately once a month, and we've taken, the words and written broad statements, and I know, I think I passed this out once, but I still brought an extra copy if anybody wanted to take a look at that. We've come up with the broad definitions, and then what I'm going to share tonight is we did the graphic. We put that out to our students, our staff, and our community members about coming up with a graphic for our portrait of a graphic that we can use on our website and in lots of different ways. So anyway, we want to show you, this is what we've come up with, and we did not come up with this. A parent actually submitted this. We had 12 different designs that were submitted to our design committee, and this is the one that everyone landed on. And like I said, a parent is the one that submitted this. He is somebody that wanted to go into graphic design, but he was kind of steered a different way by his family. And so when I'm like, whoa, he definitely can do some side work. But what I want to just show you on this real quick is when you look at, we do want to do a little bit of cleanup. For example, when we look at the way our critical thinker, strong character are, we'd like to make it so they kind of go down like this in size, so they kind of line up a little bit better. What we did for our elementary students, because we didn't open this up, the design process, to our elementary students, but what we did do to have them have some voice in this is you can see here where we have these different icons. Well, we took some different icons that we saw from different versions that we were given, and we asked our elementary kids to vote on it. And they did that during PE. Steph Klofke was part of the design committee, and that way all kids heard the same message, they all had the same chance to vote. And so we have to get those up here. For example, on the strong character, we've put a little heart on the middle of our superhero. Effective communicator, I think we might take the dots off. Somebody brought to our attention, well, is that really effective communication? Always, I don't know. So I don't know, we're going to talk a little. Yeah, so I don't know about that. But what we really like about this is we can use this in so many different ways. We've got a great graphic that, has our G in there, but we can have these where you could click on that part of it and you could click on it and get the broad definition. If you click on this icon, we wanted to take it to our rubrics, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. Another thing we saw when we went to Houston to the Ed Leader 21 conference, when we were visiting with districts that are going down the same road, they had, not this one, but they had a circle, and what they did is we could take the tiger out and we could put a student's face in that represents that person, every student is going to be emulating those characters. So anyway, just something to, ponder. But we are really thrilled with this. One thing that that we would, I mean, we've taken it to our leadership team, we've taken it to the community when we had our community conversation night. If, I don't know how to, if I'd say, how.
You're kind of asking for their blessing to move forward, aren't you?
Yes, that is exactly what we're asking for. And what I would like to see us do is, in April, invite Mr. Richards that did this drawing, or did this graphic, to come, and then we could, you know, say thank you to him.
Yes.
Because,
Cool.
I mean, this is something that we could be using for quite a while.
I agree. Could you, you said you were going to change something. I didn't quite get what it
Well,
was.
like, for example, one thing that we will probably do a little tweaking on is how the words are listed. We like them to go so that it goes from the smallest to the largest down. I don't know, that's just some, but they're just little tiny little tweaks that we're
I
talking
think
about.
it looks nice.
But ultimately, and we've got this graphic, you can click on the other ones, Tia, because I think we've got, like, he even went through and gave us different color grades, so you can go to the next one, like with the black, and then the next one I think is all black. Yeah, that was the last one. So that's where we are with that. The next thing that we're going to be doing with the committee is, so yep, we've got the broad definitions, and you know, right now we're just focusing on global citizenship and successful collaborator. And the reason that we chose those was because we know we're already collaborating. We're collaborating all the time. Global citizens was a little bit harder to wrap your heads around. So we have looked at what some other schools are doing. And this was kind of where we landed. Now, this is Van Meter. This is not our work. But this is an example of where the committee has landed on where we want a single point rubric. We do not want something that says, oh, this is what it looks like halfway. This is what it looks like, you know, you're just beginning, now you're going to be, you know, you're not quite a collaborator. We want it to say exactly what we think a collaborator is at each grade span. And then we can give that feedback to students on where they are in that journey, but we don't want to list it as, oh, this is what it might, you know, we want it to be very explicit. This is what it is at each grade span. We don't want to break it off into a multi-point rubric. So that, I shouldn't say that's where the committee has landed on that. So then the rest of the work for this year will be really drilling down for global citizen and successful collaborator. And then next year we'll add 2 more words into it. But we'll be a little bit farther down the road with that because we won't have this other back work that we have to do. That will all be done. So just, you know, that's where we're at right now. And any questions?
No, I mean, other than it looks, I like it a lot. I think it's really cool to finally see that. I was lucky enough to go down to Phoenix. Was it Phoenix? Yes. And see this, you know, last year and see what the other schools had. And at that time, it was kind of like this, oh, isn't that cool? Look at what they've done. And it felt like we were starting, but we were quite a ways away from that. And now to see this kid.
Oh, when we looked at this, it's like,
at least we're moving along. Of course, we're not done, but I mean, we're going there.
The other piece I should have said earlier was, I think it's important. We are a very high achieving district, and we have certain expectations for academics, but we just have an expectation because they're there. But we didn't want to lose that in our graphic, and that's where the academic excellence comes into play in the center. That really, you know, that's all centered around there, and all those words will come from there. So, anyway.
Great job. I'm sorry, is it okay that you say the person's name who did this? Because I think it's just amazing.
Oh, yeah, no, I definitely think it's okay. I just think it would be nice if we at least said a formal thank you or something for...
Absolutely.
Because this is, I mean, like I said, this was something we'll be using for quite a while.
So is this, I'm asking the question now, is this something that has to come before the board to be finally approved? Or is this just a FYI at some point? I don't even know.
I was looking at it as an FYI. I don't know that I don't know that it's something that has to be, you know.
At some point.
But I do think it'd be nice if we said thank you to that gentleman formally.
Okay, any comments or questions?
That's really good.
No, we're really pleased with it.
Yeah, really good.
Having seen this, I'm glad I didn't see it in mine.
Yeah.
On a doodle. Yeah, sorry. Awesome. Thank you, Carrie.
No, that's exciting. We're happy about this.
Okay.
Nice job.
Any other administrator report?
As you know, all of our administrators are parent-teacher conference pretty much.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next item on the agenda is announcements and celebrations. Obviously, we had a celebration last week. With the girls' tournament. Is there
Yep.
more to note or?
No, another thing that we have that's been handled in our district office is we're moving to the Infinite Campus. And Cassie went, our registrar, plus these two ladies, and Gail in our office have been doing a great job of moving things along. There's a lot of work to this, and I really appreciate the fact of how they're taking the ball and running with it. And I think that when we get into August and we are with Infinite Campus, we'll be very pleased with the things that we can do with that. So thank you to you two and to any of the other people that are working on that. Cassie's, leading that charge too.
Excellent. Anything else? Okay. It looks like the next item is board reports, and we have an item ROCOP.
ROCOP, yeah. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think Jeff, you were there. I know Deb was there. John, were you there?
No, I was not.
Just a quick update. I went as well. It was always a good event. I don't know what the attendance was. It was 230,
200, was it 45?
245. I saw they raised
I saw that.
$90,000,
Yeah.
which was outstanding. That was net.
Wow.
So I think it was a great event. Yeah, it's for those that haven't gone, it's awesome.
And they made some changes this year. I love that they're like always kind of trying to do something a little bit different. I did find out that I have some kind of a problem where I can't really understand auctioneers at all. So I just try to sit still. But, yeah.
Don't gesture. Just pretty sure hit a nod.
But I know some people made comments too about how we had a lot of fewer items in terms of silent auctions and stuff. But when you got there were items there, so they did a lot of work, and I hope everybody appreciates all the work that the foundation does on the ROCOP committee. So
I'd agree. They do a great job, and they allow us to do things above and beyond what we could do.
yeah, at one point at the end of the night, the only thing I had tagged on to your bit, Andrew, was they have a piece where we have like a dollar amount that we're trying to reach, and this means X many, was it field trips, plus
Yeah.
this, plus
Yep,
this, plus
yep.
this, and I think the amount was 20,000 is what
They ended up on that last call a little over 21,000.
Yeah, and so in the matter of maybe 10 minutes, it felt like you just watched people make different monetary donations, and it was cool because they made it a graphic so that you could actually see it going up as we talked.
And then you could put in as little or as much as you want to. I think they started out with 5,000,
Yep.
and then I don't know what they ended up with, but everyone could kind of hit their price point.
And then you were able to sign a sheet that will go in the board. So just really neat way.
Blueprint. It's blueprint.
The blueprint.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I thought was cool.
The blueprint.
They're gonna hang there.
Yeah, they were gonna frame it and hang
It's
it
in
up
my
there.
office with the
Outside of
names on it. I had to make sure with saying that we got the right blueprint so that we're signing the right thing.
I
Yeah.
signed my name upside down.
Oh boy.
Great.
Okay, so I think that.
Try to picture the tag.
Yeah. Any other comments about that? Okay. I think we can move on to old business. Item 6 on the agenda is second reading of the reviewed amended board policies. So we had 2 that kind of contained more changes, or were kind of a reconstruct, if you will. The first one was capital assets, 802, and the changes, we talked about this before. This was where we are really trying to capture our true, what are the procedures that we follow on a yearly basis to keep track of capital assets, which are those assets that are over $5,000. The actual ISB policy mentions like asset tagging. Is that what they refer to this?
Barcode.
Yeah, which is pretty extensive and not really in line with what we do here. So Gail reworded that, and we saw the changes. I don't believe, maybe it was John, and if it wasn't you, John, I'm sorry, but I think somebody mentioned last time she had taken out the lost items. What were the
Lost or
policies
stolen.
if it was
Right.
lost or stolen, and someone commented that I think we need to put that back in, and she did.
Okay.
So that's in this revised. Other than that, I'm not aware of any changes from the prior. And then, should we talk about these in both? Does this need to go on for a third reading? Like,
Yes, I would ask that when we go down to, let's see, it would be the ad hoc committee exhibits, there's a charter in there that was,
Oh, yeah.
can you bring that one up? Is it, what's the?
It's 208. The one thing I wanted to say is, do we need to treat these, can we treat these separately? In other words, with capital assets, do we need to continue that on to a third reading before we go on to the committee?
If you have the right to waive the third reading if you.
I don't want to suggest that we do that if people would like a little bit more time to review it, but if so.
So moved.
I'll
second that.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we will approve the capital assets, that's 802.4, 802.4R1, and 802.4R2, as they are noted in the board packet.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, Lindsay.
No, yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I had just asked Deb if we can take a look at the ad hoc committees. I really want to look more at the 208.1E1 ad hoc committee exhibit. I don't know if we can pull that one up to you.
I think it's at the bottom.
Is it?
I don't think that's E1, is that? The next one,
Next
there's,
one?
yeah. Yeah. If you scroll to the bottom, I think that's the one he's talking about, or close to the bottom.
I had one question on that one. Towards the bottom, it has the principal highlighted in yellow. And then
Yeah.
it says plus or minus one additional administrator team member. I just think we need to strike the minus, because if we had a minus, we wouldn't have anybody.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Is it, can you
Good guess.
Yep, that's it. So, right to John's point, it's just a teeny bit further under, I think. Yeah, a little bit further to get there. So, yeah, and that brings up a good point. We should just say plus an additional team member. And we got rid of the assistant high school principal. I think that was just a mistake on our part, right? Doesn't have to be the high school.
Right, I think
Even
we
though
want to
there's a
keep
lot
it
of
up.
changes right now, that's not
What?
going to be true going forward all the time.
I think that was exactly what, in our office, when we looked at it, we said, well, if you just have only high school, there's lots of other building projects that are
Yeah.
happening, so.
And you may want to think about, you know, if you weren't sure whether you wanted the principal or the assistant principal, you could use principal or designee plus another person.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
That's a good
I like that.
I
or
kinda like that idea
I like
too.
that or designee a lot
Yeah.
in policies,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
then it gives
Little leeway.
the leaders to,
We don't talk about term length at all in here either, so I don't know if you assign a term length, or if we just say 2 years somewhere, or you leave it open as it sits. I think at some point we probably need to put some sort of length of term on these committees, just so it's not,
oh, just to get some new blood.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's a good one.
and in my mind, I think 2 years would be, that way it's not,
You can always be a guest speaker, right?
you got it.
If you're only meeting a couple times a year.
But two might not be long enough.
Yeah.
From the standpoint of it, it's hard to get volunteers, and so when you have a good one, you don't
I don't-
really want it.
Well, my worry is I want to be able to get volunteer. You can sell it, 2 years allows you to sell in a 4-year
Oh, I see.
commitment, so that we can get them locked in, and I think, well, then you can renew every 2 years. Or maybe we can just do 3 or 4, I guess, but I want to make sure we get people from the community too. Because, I mean, the superintendent, Lindsay, you got no choice, you're on it. Principal, a lot of these.
Thanks, Ed.
Board-
For you, you get
Yeah, so
to
it's the district members is what I want to make sure we go and recruit. So that's the piece I just want to make sure we go get them.
I like the idea of a 2-year term.
for just that line, right?
Just that line.
Just, yeah, for the 2 to 3 ad hoc members of the district.
What do you think about that, Gary? You unfortunately have to try and recruit people for SiAC, so.
I think
what do
that
you
putting the limit, or what the term is important, because then they know that it's not just, I think it gives a little bit more credibility to being on the team as well, to know that this is how long I'm serving, this is, X amount of times we might be meeting, or.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know with a foundation is a 3-year commitment, and I would say 80% of those people probably go for at least 2 terms on there too.
Oh, I, oh,
So
okay.
maybe, I'm thinking the 2-year with hopes that they're gonna go
Do another
beyond
term.
2-year. I mean, it's gonna be, but just, I'm thinking more just from recruiting, so if I say 4, then they're gonna.
Okay, so you're not thinking term limits?
No.
No.
Term.
Period.
I'm thinking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was missing
Yeah, no,
that.
not
No, so you minimum, 2
Yeah,
years, that's your
2-year term.
commitment.
Okay, yeah, just if you put 2-year term and parentheses behind that.
Yeah.
Do you think when you say that, Andrew, that you think, okay, so we start, would you want everybody to be on that same on and off? Or would you like to have it again the second year so that you've got people,
Yeah.
you know what I'm
I'd like to
saying?
alternate it.
That's what I think, 'cause I think you could
Otherwise, you
end up
got it
with-
all in, all out. You
Yeah.
kind of want it every year, kind of have it. Yeah, you want some consistency there.
Yeah, so we might have to ask them. Well, hopefully some people too will just.
So they can maybe
actually
re-up after the
elect.
first year, and say, okay, I'll do another 2-year term after
Yeah.
that first year.
Sounds like a car lease. I'm not
Yeah,
doing a car
a
lease.
re-up, the sign.
Yeah, and so some of our, just to be clear, some of our ad hoc committees, of course, once the objective of that committee is met, you are done, right? This is, the reason this is needed is because it is a standing committee without really a definite end and date.
So are you looking at taking this to a third reading?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I
okay.
think so, with those, I would say with those 2 changes. I like that idea too, of principal or designee.
Yep.
So we can change that. And for this facility committee, we will indicate that there's a 2-year term length, not term limit, but term length.
Right. If you would scroll down just a little bit, Tia, I would also, I think that I would, right there, I would recommend too that we look at this one for a third reading. I have the opportunity to sit down with the policy committee, which is to my right, both the people here. And I think that we would like to, for one, would like to go ahead and massage that a little bit, if that's all right, making that a third reading.
I'd like to change, you want to change the name. Don't you want it, labor management sounds like
A
it's.
little rough.
Yeah. So we gotta think a little bit more.
Yeah.
You gotta sell that thing.
The collaborative committee, get that artist
Because it doesn't really reflect the spirit of, I think, what we're
No.
trying,
Right,
what they're
right.
trying to do with
No,
that.
it's-
And I think too that we want to make sure
Pretty
that
good graphic.
Yeah.
objectives are about what the group wants to talk about. I think that is more than what we want the outcome to be. So.
And it's a good committee.
Yeah.
Some of you have said on that already, but I just think that we want to
Yeah.
work it
Yes.
a little.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
Absolutely.
Just push those back.
Yep. So those would be for a third reading. And just so you guys are aware, we've been contacting Tyler because he is the author of this and he's aware. We will, after the third reading, assuming this goes through, have to get on the hop about, I don't want to say recruiting, but
Yeah.
trying to think of some members. And he has some good ideas, so, okay. So we will move those. Capital assets was approved, and we'll hold off on the ad hoc.
For a third reading.
For the third reading. Okay. Next item on the agenda is consider and possibly approve the proposed 2020-21 school calendar. So this is one that we talked about last time and decided to push off.
Right. What we did was there it is right there. Thank you. We got together. Actually, it was that day that it was so cold that we didn't have school. We got together and worked as an administrative team. We talked, and Carrie can attest to this. We talked about all kinds of different ways to look at this. I think that if it seems to me it was Jeff that made the comment that our charge was to come back with something that could work for the parties involved. One of the things that we have is we are going to go ahead with those first days of in-service or professional development. We did, though, as you go down, we did drop, do you remember which one it was, Carrie?
It was in April, if you go, top. Yeah, we took out April 14th, I think is what the date is. We took that one out. And we took that out so that it would take one of those days out. And that is also during the time when we are going to be doing our state assessment. That's just when it falls. And so we felt that that would give a little more consistency for when that testing is happening. So that was why we took that one out.
We tried to make that as a compromise. Also, I am a part of the district leadership team that Carrie talks about when they're doing the portrait of a graduate, and I believe that you have some information on that from the standpoint of they will be. Oh, go
Next,
ahead,
I'm sorry. Yes, next year we're going to, we're revamping this committee just a little bit and giving kind of a broader base than just the portrait of a graduate through teacher leadership. But one of the things is we want to have a subcommittee that really is looking into, okay, what is the best, what would be the most optimal time and arrangement of our professional learning time. We did do a parent survey a couple of years ago, and that was when, you know, we had a lot of feedback on the mornings. When we went to the mornings that one year, that was a while ago. So we want to come back to that, but we know that if there's no way we can do something like that and do it justice before the end of the school year. So that's why we'd like to keep it this way now, and then know that we are going to have a committee that's really going to dig into that for next year. On the flip side of that, when we look at the amount of days, and I know I said this last time as well, we have a lot of things, a lot of initiatives on the plate, big ones. Not, it doesn't feel like maybe a lot, but there's a lot of work that goes into that. And so when you look at a district initiative, which is all district, and then you have building initiatives that buildings are working on. For example, at the middle school and the high school, they're doing standards-based grading. So that also takes work to dig into that. Plus, all the other things, little things that might be happening. We really want to help with the consistency of how we can come back to these things. That's the other place that this came from. Now, I am all about building consensus and getting feedback from people. But on the flip side, it's hard to get feedback from people if I'm on the other side and I don't know what that is. I mean, it's easy for me to say, well, I would use that for the 5 days at the beginning. I mean, as we've looked at what those 5 days are going to look like, there will be 2 days of work time. Now, it might not be a 2 full day. It could be afternoon, morning, morning, afternoon, somehow throughout there. We are going to honor that. But we also have infinite campus training. We have some stuff we want to do with portrait of graduate. Building principals want to do stuff. We have meetings at the beginning. We just have a lot of things. I mean, Lindsay, I think you and I have said, wow, we have twice a year that maybe we can really have a good time, a deep time to get in front of the whole entire staff.
That's right.
And this year and last year, we've taken a bit of that off the plate with all the construction that's happened. That's where we want to come back to that. So there could be, one other thing. One of the things that was also brought up was what does the schedule look like on that? That is not, I will help support a building principal on that by any means. But that is Lindsay and I getting in the weeds of this is how your schedule needs to be in your buildings on these days. Building principals during as we've met, they're going back to the drawing table to say, okay, what can that schedule look like on an early out day or that week of an early out day to be the most optimal for students? Because ultimately, that's why we're here. We're all here for kids. And some people could say, well, yeah, we're here for kids. Why are you pushing for this? Because to be successful for students, there is also things that we have to do for our teachers to build that toolbox for them. So that's how it's kind of a seesaw balance that we're trying to do there. So
Are there concerns too in the high school on that Thursday too, when there are issues there with
The
scheduling on
Yes.
Thursday?
And so I think
After an early out.
Vic and Cindy are
They said they're gonna-
looking at that
Yeah.
schedule, but that's just what I wanted. I mean,
Yeah.
that is, I'll use the elementary as a really good example of this. The elementary, when we look at our special schedule and early out schedule, you're always going to have, if I am Wednesday or I'm Wednesday art, every time there's an early dismissal day, I don't get art. So you've got a chunk of inequity there, because you've got some kids that will have art not once that week and other kids that will. So you've got one section that's behind on art because their special day is always on Wednesday. So what the elementary did on their schedule is when they did their day 1 through 5, they took the early out Wednesdays off the schedule. So on early out Wednesdays, they're gonna, that instead of being a day, if it's always a day 4, it isn't now. It's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then when Wednesday, that early out comes back, you're gonna skip that Wednesday and you're gonna go back to 1. So it doesn't, you don't always have art on Wednesday or whatever, but it helps for the equity for students having those scheduled specials. So I think that's a really good example of how can we be creative in our scheduling, but that's really about how that building wants to look at that.
Carrie made a good point. Oh, I'm sorry, go
Well,
ahead.
just so then Wednesday, you have extra something rather than you're missing something.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is exactly correct.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And I talked to Vic about this a little bit after the meeting last week, and he just said they are looking into what they can do to reschedule to make it better for the kids. Whether they change or not, I don't know, but I can tell you we're gonna put some time into it to try to make it what's best
Yeah.
for those early
And
outs.
make it so that it's not so difficult.
Yeah.
You know, the community.
Yeah. That's right.
They said you're gonna work with the staff, try to figure something out, so I'm sure they'll have some plan in place.
And we're not trying to take people and set them in a classroom
Oh, no,
or an
that's-
auditorium for 5 days. What we want to do is we want to get that delicate balance. When we found out that we weren't going to be able to be in our buildings maybe right away, we just said, hey, we're going to back off our PD this past year. We put people that work in the classrooms. But the big thing is, and Carrie's right, we really only get a chance to be in front of and talking to our entire staff 2 times, and that's the beginning of the year and at the end of the year.
And they just, I'm sure, put those dates on the calendar because they're so excited about it.
They are.
I talked to them.
Goosebumps. But that's what we have. Basically, that's what we have for as far as the proposed calendar.
Well, I move to approve the updated calendar.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Nice work.
calendar.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
hammering that out, you guys.
Okay, now the second one here. This was tabled last time, so we kind of have to bring it up again, new, I believe. So we have a motion, or we have an item here on the agenda to consider and approve the master contract roofing project changes with HALA as reviewed and approved by the district attorney. So this is new roof design, if I say design, maybe that's overboard, I don't know, but we are required as a school district to work with an architect to have these
That's not true.
designs.
That's not true.
That's what our attorney has.
That's not true. That's not what that letter says.
Okay,
So, I've been working on this and I'm just not ready to bring back anything to the board. I'll have it ready next month. that's kind of what we did last time. But this, I've learned a lot about this, but there's some other things going on.
okay. So what is the deadline for when we have to have this decided? So is there a deadline at all? I don't even know.
It's just when you'd like to do some roofing projects. I
Okay.
mean, at this point, there was some discussion on whether or not we were trying to get something ready for the summer for construction.
Got it.
We're kind of beyond that time frame, just considering if you were to choose to proceed this direction, amount of time to kind of prep that and get it on the bidding agenda for some roofers. This
Okay.
summer time frame isn't as likely as maybe a fall project.
Okay.
So, and Jeff's right, if the amount of roofing is below a certain dollar amount, for any project for that matter, then an engineer or an architect isn't necessary to be included. It's just, if a project, whether it's a roof or anything is over a certain dollar amount, it requires competitive bid or it requires a competitive quotes or a competitive open bid process. And we're just, considering some of the complications we had with some roofing that you guys were trying to manage outside of the construction project that was going on. We do this for a lot of districts. We can just help coordinate that with future projects or just roofing projects. Because like I said, if it's over a certain dollar amount, then you have to have an architect do that. So we're just kind of offering some additional services if necessary.
Which roof is this for? Which is the roofing?
I'd have to check with Dan. Do you know?
Yeah, there were 3 potential roofs. The smallest one is a small strip over the elementary administrative offices, and that one's likely small enough to where you would not need an architect. You could call up Central States or whomever. I think it's even below that, the smaller $36,000 threshold for even open quotes. Then the other two are a little bit larger. The west locker rooms in the intermediate school, so just right over here, the roof over that, and then the east gym of the intermediate school, I think was needing some attention as well.
East gym.
East gym of the intermediate
Is
school.
that the old gym?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I
Yeah.
mean-
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, I can't keep them all straight.
Yeah. So we're not trying to shove services down your throat. There's just a discussion to where there's some complications that we help Lindsay and Gail manage that were coordination issues with the last project. That, okay, if we can,
Sure.
and also discussions with Tyler, like if we can be more proactive with it, then it would be helpful. But that's
Absolutely.
really up to you guys.
Well, I appreciate it, and Jeff, I appreciate you doing
Yeah,
that additional research on that. I'm sorry I misunderstood that.
Who keeps track of the warranty stuff on those?
Dan,
Dan does.
Dan or
You get a
Steve.
written one from the company, the people that put it on. The underlayment warranty is not the installer.
Okay.
Yeah, you can get some manufacturer warranties up to
Yeah.
25, 30 years.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna say, we're just gonna let this be
Table it.
until,
No.
No,
Oh, sorry, I can't say that.
you can say that, of course you can say that, but I mean, I think what we're just gonna do is, so we are not, there's no second,
No
there's
action.
no action to move forward on this today.
Right.
So we will wait, and Jeff, let's be in
Yep.
contact so that
Yep.
we can make sure we present that next.
I have been in contact with Lindsay and stuff, so.
Okay, so I just wanna make
No,
sure.
no, I know.
Yeah,
I just wanted you to know I'm working on it.
Okay,
Wait till you get his bill. No,
yeah,
I'm just kidding.
okay. What is that, April? Holy goodness sakes, April's coming up. Okay, all right. So it looks like we move on to new business. Is that correct here, everybody? Is good with that?
We're rolling.
Okay, so the first item A is the story construction updates and cost and budget summary. Thank you, having trouble saying that. I think I was gonna say cemetery.
Turn it over to Adam.
Yeah, Adam.
So, more complete on punch list items. Really hoping to wrap everything up by the end of spring break. So there are some activities that we couldn't do while school's in session. One of them is replacement of some cabinets that were sent with the wrong laminate at the middle school. Those are showing up. They're shipping actually this Friday. They'll deliver on Monday, and they'll tear them out and put the new ones in Monday and Tuesday of next week. The greenhouse electrical should finish up tomorrow. Actually, they weren't here today because there were some missing parts.
Okay.
Also sounds like Mr. Davis has some additional work to do for our electrician to finish. So they were hoping that would be done and they could finish that tomorrow. Sports complex, the opening of the seating period is April 1st. So they will start their work roughly 10 days before that, which is about the amount of time that it'll take them to grade the fields again. And then they'll go from grading the ball fields to permanent seed everywhere else on the site. And I was sick last week, so when it was time for me to update summaries and stuff, I didn't have the time to do that. So I just typed in on the bottom here, so our previous contingency was 135.10. And actually, we added to the contingency, so if you look under item 1 here, there are a bunch of credits back to the district. So
So
it
let
now
me ask
sits
you
at
a question on that.
135.855.
On that ground out there, I've been talking to Lindsay and I were talking the other day. And what's the chances that we're gonna run into any problem with those diamonds to get to the finished product? Is there, like we have a contingency of 135. I think from the board standpoint, we ought to not touch that money until we get everything done.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to spend that money. If we're digging out there and we hit something or something goes wrong, I think we need to be conscious about that because there's still a lot to go on.
Right, and I think that was our
That's
internal
right.
discussion.
That's a great
is that
question.
We're not reaching
Yeah.
out to do a bunch of
Right.
extravagant extra stuff at this point, so, and I fully agree with you that we just don't know. I don't foresee any big things coming up out there as we finish, but you just don't know.
One thing I want to say, I did talk to Adam. Sometimes when you're sitting on our side of it with the owner's side, we get a little antsy. And the greenhouse, I know that that Mr. Davis and the crew want to get in there. So I was talking to Adam and I said, hey, what can we do to get this so that we can move things along? And I really do think that you helped us to get that. I know that there's a shortage of workers out there, but I know that the electrical people came in and they've been working on it. And our goal is to try to get that baby up and running as soon as possible so that they can do things. I think they do things with flowers for Mother's Day and things like that. So thank you for doing that. I know that's always can sometimes be a challenge, so I appreciate that.
Greenhouse is cool.
Yeah, truthfully, it's an expectation, so, I mean, you calling me and asking for that help or direction is an expectation that I have, that if something isn't happy, or if the district isn't happy about something or has something else, then I expect that phone call. I think the one thing with the greenhouse that I'll say maybe compounded things, you know, we had set up, or we thought anyway, that the greenhouse was going to be done through the winter or even through the summer last year. So with it completing really after our electricians were here and gone, that was the difficulty in getting people here to finish it.
And also the putting together those panels. We were going to have our students do that, but we thought this is maybe something that might be above that area, so we did hire that out to do, and I think that was the best thing. I don't want anyone getting hurt because they're taking these big panels and trying to put them up in a greenhouse.
I think that was a smart choice as well. So.
Any questions about that? What else?
No, I would ask you to go back and look at the one, you got a change order on here for $929, and I was just reading through my stuff today, and I believe we changed out 4 switches. Yeah, I hope I'm wrong on that.
Which one is that?
I think it's 8 point, it's the last one on the list.
16-1, number 8.
Yeah, it's 929. Change order requests, and then way at the bottom.
16-1, number 8. For 924.
And so what are you?
Well, when I read it, Deb, what they did is they key locked the that's it, the last one.
Here's the last one.
Yeah. Lighting, I have lighting revisions.
Right, and they changed out, and I was reading it, and you changed out from regular switches to key lock switches. So if you just check on that, maybe it's just something that slipped by, but the way I read it is we're changing out 4 switches and putting a cover on one, and we're going to charge $929.
I think that my one question is, I think that these were previously approved
Correct.
by the board, or maybe that
Not
this
this
one might
one,
not
not
have been
this one.
because it didn't need to be approved by the board.
Right.
It's less than 10,000, and so
Correct.
this is just. I just want to be clear that this is just a change. We get this second through when.
Well,
they
I'm
change the
still going to ask you to go
contract,
back and look at it, if that's it.
Absolutely.
and just maybe provide some clarification,
Yeah.
but not change.
Guys, do you think that's where they're trying to make those hallways in the gap areas? Maybe I'm dead wrong on this. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. It's not that location.
Okay.
Dig into it a little more.
Okay.
Yeah, just take a look.
I don't recall what that one is.
You know, if you're running circuits and stuff like that, I get that, but if
Yep.
we're just changing out, like it says at the bottom, you're replacing a toggle switch with a single pole switch, and then you're replacing one switch with a cover, and then you're replacing a 3-way toggle switch with a single pole key switch. And you're just putting key switches in them, is what my understanding is by reading this. I would think the number's not correct. So,
Yeah,
thank you.
We check into that.
Absolutely.
No, not a problem.
Do the change orders require a motion? They've already been approved, so this is just FYI.
This is approval for signature update of their contract.
Signature change. Okay, the changes have been done, but sorry.
Correct.
Why you have to tell me that every time, I'm sorry.
I can't get it
I
straight.
can't get it straight.
It's complicated.
It's quite a process. Yeah, it's complicated.
So,
We apologize.
Because of Jeff's question, does this mean that we can move on the rest of them and not?
No, I think we can do them all, and they can
Okay.
just keep to their word and get back to Lindsay about it.
Okay.
Okay.
And here's the deal, the project isn't completely wrapped up yet. If we
Right.
want to change, we want to pull some dollars out, there's still an opportunity to pull dollars out
Yeah.
if we don't like that price.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank
You'll
you.
just have to follow up with them then.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll-
I will.
I was gonna say, I'll look at it tomorrow or tonight when I get home and I'll let you know what it was.
That's fine. Thank you.
Appreciate it, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is there a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, okay. That passes. Thank you for that.
Yeah. I might, before we move on to the next thing, just, once again, Jeff, you mentioned the contingency, and yeah, the plan is to not touch that until athletic fields are done, which I think is a wise choice. Just to update you on the kind of the contingency committee, and we put together a relatively exhaustive spreadsheet, and that helps identify additional things that the district may want to do, primarily populated by administrators and just a couple other smaller jobs that weren't included in the grand bond referendum project. All that to say is that I think, Lindsay, you're continuing to work with the administrators, and I think Amy even added something today on it.
She did?
Yeah, which is not a problem.
Just kidding,
So
just kidding.
it'll get more fine-tuned, and it'll be ready to be discussed as Lindsay and the administrators continue to talk. But once again, we're going to avail ourselves to help manage that process as well as part of our fee and our project for what we've been doing. And I think it'll be ready by the time you guys get your ad hoc meetings organized and ready for that too. So we think that'll be a good tool to help facilitate some of the master plan discussions. Anyway, just FYI and an update on that situation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Looks like we can move on to the next item, 702, the 2021 proposed certified budget. So we need to set a public hearing, and Gail is in her notes has mentioned Monday, April 13th, which I believe is our next board meeting. And we just need to vote on whether or not we will set that public hearing.
Move to approve public hearing on April 13th.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we will set that. That'll be the first part of our next meeting. Okay, moving on through here. So the next item here, 703, this is the first reading of the reviewed amended board policies. So maybe I'll let Adam just left. Andrew, sorry. Andrew talked about that. We just met, and this is like the cleaning up and the, going through all of our policies and making sure they're kind of fresh within 5 years,
So you can maybe Tia bring up that, what is it on,
yeah, she put both items in
Both
here, which I
items in
thought
there.
was cool.
yeah, right here. So
Oh,
you
yeah.
notice now we've got the Gilbert version and the ISB version on the right for all the different policies. Long story short, there's not a lot of differences between the Gilbert and the ISB for these. I don't even know how many there are, 15-ish or so.
There's
Series 200 series.
Are you happy with your changes?
Yes, there's very little changes.
I trust you.
Yeah, we didn't make really any,
Right.
so.
But this does allow the board members to see that.
Yeah, the beautiful
Yeah.
thing, like I said, it's
No, I
nice,
looked
now we
at
got
it.
side by side,
Yeah,
so you
yeah.
go through them.
Yeah, that was
and
cool.
Going forward, we'll have this, and obviously if we make changes, we'll highlight them and put the notes and stuff, but really there was very few changes on here.
Yeah.
So do we need a motion for this?
It's a first
This is
reading.
just a first reading, so
First
we'll
reading.
just get them out in front of you guys.
Okay,
Yeah, and it was actually
very nice.
A through P, and I think it does make it easier for us to go
Yeah.
back and hopefully easier for other board
Yeah.
members to review.
How do you guys put all that together?
Actually, Jen Holton does that. She asked us, and so we have our meetings and we publish agendas and have minutes, and so between those two, we can get some nice documentation. She offered to do that,
Yeah,
which is,
nice.
it's a great thing.
I poured my
So-
phone in one, I had it on my
It was horrible. And sometimes it's just the legal references and stuff, but if we do happen to approve these, as they are written, essentially what she will do is just take the IASB version and overlay that in our policy section, and that way we'll have all the updated legal references there.
Right, that's a good point.
If we don't, she'll make the necessary changes, but it's a little easier. In the past, we've had a little bit of trouble just because it's so confusing with all the changes going on. And this way it's easier for us to communicate.
And the only one, if you really want to maybe look at prior to next board meeting, is that Code of Ethics at 204.
Yeah.
And because there's actually two different options that IASB kind of has, really there's a long option and a short option, short and sweet and then a more detailed. In the past, we've always went with the shorter, kind of short and sweet option. And after reviewing them both, I mean, we kind of recommend that, yeah, we keep that same option, but just maybe something to review prior to next board meeting. Just look at that option too, if it's something we really need. We can obviously add it, but it's just a lot more words in my mind.
Yeah,
They both get across the
exactly.
same
One is
point.
like detailed and one
Very
kind of leaves it a
detailed.
little bit more open to
Yeah.
interpretation, but it is,
And that's, again, 204 Code of
Yeah.
Ethics.
yep. Okay. And so if there aren't any questions, of course, we'll discuss those again next time. Okay. 704, consider and approve the purchase of a 2019 Dodge Grand Caravan from Deere of Ames for $22,493.
And this is used again to haul.
All students.
Students.
So
One of the things that we had is this year we bought a bus that was a special ed bus. It's less than the amount that we budget. And what we're doing is we're finding ourselves that we're a couple different places that we're going. We're specializing in routes, so we need another van available. If we can take a van or two vans to some type of a contest or athletic thing, we'll do that. And so this is money that would be what we have budgeted, and that's a pretty good price. I think that if we could go down
Very nice.
purchase that, we would. So recommendation to purchase that from Deere of Ames.
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye. Yeah, tell them thanks for giving us a good deal.
I will.
Yeah.
Good time to buy a car.
Great thing going on.
Yeah. Next item on the agenda is reviewing the financial reports, and Gail isn't here, so Tia's gonna do that. I'm joking, aren't Tia? Yes.
I'm prepared.
I didn't mean to, I was
No,
just
you're-
kidding. You saw that she presented like some details in writing, and so I don't know if anybody had any questions that they wanted to pull out from that, or comments maybe?
I do. I
Yeah.
want to bring up a couple of things.
Okay.
I know ever since the day,
Right on here.
we started with this new food service lady, what was her name?
Deb.
Deb.
Hi,
So,
there's
You know what I
your-
mean? She is this year up $49,000 over last year, it says. She has spent less money to do that. She has brought her food costs down 2 points. The real thing is that your individual selection items is the main player. And it's very nice that she does that. So somewhere along the line, Lindsay and you guys have got to tell her, really nice job.
We will.
I mean, really nice job. She ought to probably come to one of these so we can tell her.
Okay.
She has been to some. And
Yeah,
also,
but-
I mean, we should feel free to reach out as well too. I mean, right? Let us
Yeah.
know that you noticed that. I sure appreciate her summaries and how she keeps
Yeah,
it
Yes.
yeah.
simple to read and all that, so
It's not easy to find help right now for that either.
No, it's-
Jeff knows.
No, it's not, and then they tell her what she can charge for things. That's, it's an interesting way of doing business, I guess.
she showed in there about how they're even trying to present things the way that they're trying to present them. I mean, I think she's just taking a holistic approach, and
Yeah.
I do appreciate it.
Very, very nice.
Not to just call her, I mean, I know there's others that are doing
Mhm.
similar kinds of work, but I know that was highlighted.
We'll pass that on, Jeff.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
No?
Okay. And public forum.
Doesn't look like you have too much there.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the point where we move on to the consent agenda. First, I would say, is there anybody that would like to pull out items from the consent agenda for discussion? I see where the driver's ed contract went up a little bit, just in time for my daughter to go through it.
That's,
No,
yeah.
just kidding. I see.
I remember thinking, sorry, driver, I didn't have to pay.
No, I'm just- Okay.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay. Is there
Second.
Second.
any further discussion? No? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None. Approved. Okay. The next, last little wrap up here, it looks like we have April 6th coming up will be the superintendent evaluation. Of course, that's a closed session. And that begins at 5, so appreciate that. Andrew, do you have any dates of things, just make sure that we get our information to you?
I think it's the 31st, if you guys
Yep.
give me the evaluation forms, just
Okay.
email them back to me individually, and I'll put a summary together for Lindsay and also for the board prior to that April 6th meeting.
Okay.
And I'll be, if I don't have it by the 30th, I'll probably email you or remind you.
So a couple of questions about how this all goes down since I'm new. When we go into closed session, does anybody else in here with us? Is Gail in here?
Gail is there, yeah.
Secretary, yeah.
Yeah, and we record our closed sessions so that, they can prove that we talked about the things that we were supposed to talk about
Okay.
during our closed sessions, yeah.
Okay.
Is that, in general,
Yep.
that's how they go.
Yep.
So we start off the meeting and then we have kind of a script we follow,
Okay.
yeah.
And what time on April 6th are we shooting for?
5
o'clock.
Okay. And then April 13th is our next board meeting with a budget hearing attached to that. And then May 11th, my goodness.
Wow.
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 Wow, May 11th.
And you
So-
got graduation right after that.
I know, right? Exactly. So
You want to start to think about who's
who's going to speak?
going to speak?
Usually it's the new board members.
I
Speak.
don't know, board president.
No, only if she has something good to say.
What do you got to say? What are you going to do?
Let's see if I can find something. Okay, so is there a motion?
Yeah. Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Under an
Perfect.
hour.
It's perfect. Tyler's in here and it's an under an hour.
And you're out of
He
it.
would have enjoyed that.
That's great.
Nice job, guys.
Better take the
Don't let Jeff
computer off.
touch it, I'll do it.
You'll do it?
Jeff don't touch the computer. Just kidding, yeah. I love that he says that I'm the tech person here. A good thing to say.